Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 346 of Humanity Rising on this 25th day of October. I hope you had a good weekend. We had a very eventful weekend here in California, where I'm living at the moment. We had what they call a bomb cyclone that coalesced at the level of a Category 3-4 hurricane off the northwest coast of the United States. And it created what they call an atmospheric river. It was the largest cyclone ever recorded in this part of the world. And the rain that fell over the weekend in about a 12-hour period was enough to raise the rivers in our neighborhood about 15 feet, so that they overflowed the bridges and caused a lot of havoc. There were evacuations, and it was just another reminder in this part of the world after fires and droughts and everything else that one can think of. We also had floods of unprecedented proportions, which are continuing outside as I speak. We're preparing, as you know, for the Conference of Parties starting next Monday in Glasgow on climate change. And we've been reminded, as we all have over the past months with the extreme weather events, what it's like to be in a moment of the climate tipping point, where rising ecological turbulence is now a fact of life. Before we begin our program today, let us take a moment and let us pause in all the tumult, and I would say chaos of our world, to just center ourselves in our bodies, close our eyes, and attune ourselves to our hearts. See if you can listen to your heartbeat just for a minute, in a spirit of deep gratitude and thanksgiving that no matter what is happening out there, we're alive. We're all alive at this most extraordinary moment in the human journey. Thank you, everyone. Now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude and love for each and every one of you who are joining our session today, I want to commence our program by just recalling that last year, on August 6th and August 7th, Cynthia Lazaroff convened 2 sessions on the 75th anniversary of the bombings of Hiroshima and on the 9th of Nagasaki at the close of the Second World War. In the course of those conversations, it was brought to our attention that women have suffered 2 to 1 more severely from the effects of radiation than men have. And there was an additional session that we did last October that really went into how the environmental effects of radiation, endocrine disrupting chemicals, fossil fuels affect women's bodies more than men's. There's a certain reality that we need to take in as we discuss the increasing pollution of our world. That led to a impulse to really start to focus on women's health, girls' health, and Leslie Southwick, who was joining the Ubiquity staff about then as our Chief Development Officer, really took the leadership with another woman, Marilyn Olson, and others to begin to develop a summit on these matters. And that has led us to the session today in preparation for something that's going to be happening more robustly and comprehensively next spring, actually, on Humanity Rising. So I want to thank all of you for joining this program today. I want to now introduce Leslie, who's been really working hard with a cohort of colleagues in the preparation of this session and the subject that we're going to deal with today. So Leslie, I turn the program over to you with many thanks, many thanks.
Thank you, my friend Jim. Thank you so much for this. I'm coming to you today from the traditional land of the Nitsapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the people of Treaty 7 region. It's important to note the land on which we come from in this moment in time. And, you know, when Jim and I sat and he said, okay, so how about doing a women's summit on this? I went, okay, where do you go from there? And you can go into the deep catastrophe of what's occurring around the ever decreasing rights of the women's body, of her and herself. And you can go to the potentiality and the abundance that the feminine wisdom, intelligence, and quotient offers to us. And I thought that there would be only 2 people I could really lean into this question with, and that was Hilary Van Welter and Rebecca Irby. Let me just take a moment about Hilary. Hilary, you know, she sits at the intersection of the unusual and the usual, the conventional and the unconventional. She sits at the intersection of seen and unseen, and she leans mostly to the side where things are unknown, unconventional, and unseen. You know, she's done things from putting together a business spa decades ago before the notion of spa and business could be put together. She currently is the CEO of Essentia, and she takes her insanely wicked intelligence and heart and looks into places and public spaces and brings in human engagement that are unparalleled in my own experience. She has been my ride or die gal since the beginning of time. Hill, over to you.
Thanks, Les. Wow, how do you follow that up? No, I'm very honored to be here today. I'm extremely honored to be part of this team, and I'm coming to you today from the traditional territories of the Wendat. Here we go. I asked Cynthia for help before because this is my goal now, is going to learn how to pronounce the names properly. Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe peoples, and the treaty land of the Williams Treaties, First Nations, and other Indigenous people. And I'm very honored to be I live across the street from the Trading Tree, which was where many of our First Nations came, and I can feel their presence every day in my backyard. I'm very honored for that. When Les approached me and said, talk to me about a women's summit, and the impetus for it being a very significant and serious situation. As Leslie says, I sort of turned things upside down and went, okay, this is a really critical issue. How do we go to the other end of the spectrum and make it something really different and fun? And then find our way through to some really new ways of looking at this situation. And I said to Les, what if, one of the things we need to look at is what is the real framework on which we can start, because it's a huge topic, women's health. And of course, the UN Sustainable Development Goals came up because that is a framework. It is the world's to-do list. But as that popped into our heads, our stomach sunk, because the current status of these goals is one which we felt needed a change. And so in looking at where the fun could happen with the Sustainable Development Goals, we thought, why not give them a makeover? Now, this had been something that I had done for many years when I was doing healing, intergenerational trauma work. I would often look at how do we take the feelings people are feeling and turn them into a persona, and then work with that persona. I've done the same thing with land and having land become a character and bringing a new design in. So why not take a goal? And so that was how it started. And then we thought, well, if we're going to do that, then we really are turning around the whole idea of Sustainable Development Goals. And so we took the letters of SDG and reversed them, and they became Girl-Driven Solutions. And so Girl-Driven Solutions became the vehicle of exploring women's health. And the first thing that we are looking at is the area of the makeover of the SDGs. So that's how this started, and now I have the great honor of introducing Rebecca. And Rebecca is sort of indescribable, I have to say, and she surprises me every time. I heard her describe herself yesterday and learned a lot more about Rebecca, and I've known Rebecca for quite a while. So Rebecca's a doula, she's a guide, she's all about birthing a new world, and one that's equitable and full of empathy. But she's also a masterful storyteller. And her stories come from a breadth of knowledge and experience that she has had all over the world. She is an amazing traveler. She has been to Hiroshima. Has been very involved in the whole nuclear situation, and therefore brings a wonderful lens to the very impetus of this project, as well as to its creativity and its goal. So, Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hillary and Leslie and Jim and Humanity Rising, for hosting us today, and for this amazing opportunity to share this vision and idea with this community. We're so incredibly excited to be here. As Hillary mentioned, yes, my background is actually in education and teaching empathy and compassion, and something I've been doing for over 16 years, really looking at cultural competencies, how we can interact with one another, not in a way of assimilation, but a way of really appreciating our differences and bringing these differences together to make a much stronger community, and one that is, as Hillary said, equitable and full of empathy. So with that in mind, when we came together and started talking about what we were going to do, how we were going to do this, I thought that it was going to be really crucial for us to use a lens, and using a lens as how we look at these issues and these problems and what space we want to come from. And I think for me, heart-centered leadership and servant leadership is incredibly important. And when working inside of the UN for the last 5 years, which has been a great honor, one thing that I've seen and I've noticed is that most of the way that we speak and the way that we're looking at issues is coming from a sense of lack, a sense of fear. And I really wanted to see what would happen, especially looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. What could be possible if we look at these goals and we look at these so-called issues and problems that we're dealing with from a lens of beauty and from a lens of love. But beauty specifically, because we, through this whole process of the idea of making a makeover, we looked into words, the meaning of words, which is so incredibly important, right? The word beauty and the word like cosmetics, all coming from this word cosmos and this understanding that beauty is really the practice of uncovering the essence of something and being able to uncover it and then show it in its best light. So that is the definition of beauty and what we are going to be looking at and trying to uncover the beauty and the essence of these goals, of what as the world we're trying to accomplish and to attain. And I realized that I jumped right in without stating where I'm sitting and where I'm from. So I come from the land of the Lenape in New Jersey. It's where I was born and raised, but I recently just moved to Michigan. So I now sit on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe. And this was ceded territory in 1819, and it was the Treaty of Saginaw. And as Leslie mentioned, it's really important, I think, for us to start to understand where we are, because it's really important to know where we are so that we can understand where we're going. And these traditional lands that we sit on hold so much knowledge. And that's what I really hope and pray, that we are able to get to a space where it's not just acknowledging the land that we're sitting on, but that we're interacting with it and the people there and benefiting from the centuries and centuries of knowledge that this land and these people hold. So with that, it is a great, great honor and pleasure to introduce Cynthia and ask her to come on screen. Cynthia has been working in indigenation, decolonization, and reconciliation. And I'm so excited for her to join us and to tell us a little bit more about herself. And she's going to be bringing into the conversation what beauty is and who she does this work for. So Cynthia, please join us.
Thank you. Well, so hello, everyone. So my name is Cynthia Wesley Eskima. I'm Chippewa Mohawk. I'm Otter Clan, and I'm from the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation in southern central Ontario. I'm joining this conversation from the traditional territory of the Chippewa Nation. I am, however, in Orillia, Ontario today, and not on that small postage stamp of land called the Reserve, that the government of Canada, in its arrogance and lack of wisdom and foresight and thought would suffice. It didn't, it doesn't, and it never will. So the question today is, what is beauty? So beauty is the survivance of 350 million Indigenous peoples globally, in spite of the ugly vulgarities of colonialism, the crush of pavement and steel, the sin of overdevelopment, and rampant, unrelenting greed. Beauty is the loud resonance of historic pain, which continues to cut sharply and deeply into our present. Pain that leaves us bleeding the blood of millions of innocents who died so that we might live. Beauty is the wonder of having the blood of warriors coursing through our veins, pushing us hard to survivance and a future that only we can promise ourselves. Beauty is the gift of stories and memories and elders, healers and ceremonies, and languages that still hold the secrets of yesterday. Beauty bursts desperately upon the eyes of newborns and the newly reborn, who stand for justice and restoration, and perhaps a renewed sense of humanity. Beauty is the restless reminder that the planet isn't all-knowing, and we are but dust in ever-present winds that seek to carry our foolishness and pride away. Beauty stalks us, throws the grit of living into our eyes, scalds our hearts, and drums magic into our ears, and would lift us higher than we can ever imagine, even as we sulk and cry for more. More? Can we ever get to enough? We are selfish, wasteful, and far too careless to see the beauty that rises unbidden and majestic from the harshness and strength of the land. The wildness and willfulness of the waters of our oceans, now scarred indefinitely with our plastics, and the blessings brought to us daily, on redeeming breezes. What is beauty? Beauty is getting old and wise in spite of having everything stacked against you. But not only you, your mother, your grandmother, her mother, your daughters, and your granddaughters, and knowing they'll all persevered even when their hearts came so very close to hitting the ground. And you will persevere too, for your daughters and for your granddaughters. What is beauty? Beauty is knowing that we were here yesterday. We are still here today, all 350 million of us, and we will be here tomorrow. So, Timigwech for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. So incredibly powerful and beautiful. It gives me a great honor and pleasure to now ask Hugo to join us. Hugo works in biomimicry. He's a human and biomimicry specialist, and he is working on balancing the feminine and the masculine. And we're going to ask Hugo if you could please come onto screen and share a little bit about yourself and what you believe beauty is.
Hi, thank you, Rebecca. It's just a great honor to be surrounded by you and to have the possibility to bring both my feminine and masculine energy. And I prepared something that for me speaks more from my intention, so it's an art piece. And Richard, could you help me with the video, please? And I would like you to have this video is 2 minutes, and then I come back. Thank you. Thank you very much, and I hope you have enjoyed my definition, my expression of beauty. And well, I pass to Jai. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hugo. That was really beautiful, and thank you for putting that together for us and for sharing. I'm now going to ask Jay to come on screen and join us.
Hi.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so much. So Jay is the founder and lead sales performance trainer at Level Up Selling. I hope she tells us a little bit about it because it's so exciting and interesting. It's a company, I've not heard of this type of company before, so it's, I think, really fascinating. I'm so excited that you're here with us today. So Jay, please take it away. Oh, and please tell us what you believe beauty is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca, for that beautiful intro. So I am the founder of Level Up Selling, which is a company I've been working on for years in the making, which teaches sales training in a really untraditional way. So we focus on training people to be their most confident and authentic selves, and to step into a place where sales is not the traditional, I am here to give you something and take something. It is a foundation for building relationships and connecting to people and truly being of value in how you do business with people. So that's very exciting. And this has been an interesting question, to be honest. I love a question that will take me on a journey. And this question did, what is beauty? And so I had to ask myself, what is beautiful to me? And my answer is almost everything, you know, and that is not an answer I come to easily. It's something that I've trained myself to become. And I've done that through a lot of hardship and truly being a victim of very difficult situations, things that have happened to me that have exposed me to what I consider to be the most brutal, disgusting side of humanity. And anyone who's been through trauma will tell you it's a very dark place to be. And it's a place when you're truly a victim, where you feel powerless. And I think that powerlessness is one of the hardest things to ever have to deal with. I call it the depths of despair. It's hard in that place to even recognize yourself, let alone anything good. And so when I was going through some of the darkest days of my life, there was a quote that came to me. And it's a quote by Viktor Frankl. And it says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. And that is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so part of my healing process has been to really take an objective look at this quote and say, what is around me in these moments of darkness? If I look for beauty, if I look for good, will I find it? And my answer was yes. And sometimes the only thing you can find in a dark place there is the only thing that you need. And for me, that was gratitude for what I do have, and hope. Is there hope for, even if it's just hope for a better tomorrow? And those are things that stayed with me over years of development, years of crawling out of the darkness into the light. And so when I look at beauty, it is everything to me. Everything is beautiful, but it's because I've decided and I've had the ability to choose to look at it that way. And so beauty to me is that ability of humans that we have that can never be taken from us. It's our ability to choose, and to choose good, and to choose light. And I guess that's my challenge, and part of my purpose in the world is, I guess, to challenge people to find that piece of gratitude, to find something to be hopeful for, because there's so much beauty in that. And so I will pass that on to Romy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. And that is so beautiful, you know, finding beauty in all of the things that surround us, and being grateful, key to a happy life. And now I want to invite Ramila to join us. Ramila is an amazing lecturer, researcher, speaker, teacher, documentarian. She's made an amazing documentary called Water Be Damned, and she is also the founder of Water Speaks. So Ramila, please come join us on the stage and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your work, and what you believe beauty is.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you everyone for this wonderful event. I am really enjoying this, and listening to all of you speak has been incredible. So my birth mother is the ancient country of India, and my adopted mother right here, sitting in the arms of Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee territories, keeping me safe, keeping me nurtured. So thank you to the land, the water, and all the elements. So I'm going to share just few images with you to talk about what beauty means to me and who I am doing this for. So my three musketeers right here. So who am I doing this for? So you will see my daughters, Isha, Maya, and Reva. And I'm sure they won't appreciate me showing off this image of them. And I'm doing this, and later on you will see my second daughter, Maya, join us. She's in a lecture right now at university, and she will share her perspective. So I am doing this for the future generation and generations, for my daughters, their friends, cousins, my students. And also I want to acknowledge that I'm also doing this for Hilary Van Welter, my friend, philosopher, and guide. I've known her since a long time, and she held my hand when I was struggling. She showed me the direction so that I can pass on the baton. And thank you, Hilary. I know Hilary sits in dark places a lot of time, and she has this beautiful son, Cam. I'm doing this for him as well. And Hilary has been an inspiration. That's the beauty in my eyes of people who are sitting in dark corners and emerging out of those dark places. So I want to share a story with you. And this is when I was thinking what beauty means to me, I wanted to share story of Christy. So in my spare time, I'm also a sketch artist and a painter. And I want to tell you the story of Christy. So this is a long time back when I was an undergrad student in University of Delhi in India. And we were actually assigned to work with Mother Teresa's ashram or orphanage center in India, New Delhi. And I used to go there every Wednesday morning, spend time with the kids, playing with them. So I was very intrigued by this young, very quiet girl. Her name was Christy. She wouldn't say much. She would sit near the window and just look out and just waiting for something, but never speaking much or interacting with other kids. So I just got very interested to find out about her. So the attendants there told me that she is a rehabilitated child prostitute, and she's almost 16, but she looked around maybe 10 or 11. So I started befriending her, started talking to her. And so she would just kind of have these chalk that she would just draw on the windowsill. So I started, interacting with her, drawing with her. Whatever scrap of papers I could find as student and some coloring pencil, we would just sit and color together. We wouldn't talk. And so 3 years down the road, when I graduated from my undergrad program, I stopped going to the orphanage, and kind of not forgot, but it was just kind of in the back of my mind about Christy. I got into my master's program, life got busy. And the same year, for the World Women's International Women's Day, they had asked for some poster painting competition about girl child. So I did this, and this is not the original art that you see here. I made it much later down the road. So I did a sketch of Christy looking from inside the window, and in the shadow you will see something written here in Hindi. So this says "Mera bachpan kyun chhina." It means, why did you steal my childhood? So that was judged the first poster in the competition, and I got 1,000 rupees, which was a lot in those days. I took the money, went back to the orphanage, but Christy had left by then. She has always stayed with me, and her beauty, just the fact that the beautiful images that she would create, the fact that she was still empowered in spite of all the tough conditions she must have faced in her life, she was still empowered to move forward. So I wrote these few lines. I see her in trees and birds outside my window. I see her in flowers that coaxes itself out every spring. I see her dancing in the rain. I see her in my daughter's eyes. I see you, Christy. So she was actually she encouraged me, Christy encouraged me to find beauty in all these dark places. This is another painting that I did a few years back about a lake, just lake anywhere in the world, beautiful, pristine, calm waters. It's a fall scenery. And from that, what I want is the beauty that I found, and Hugo's actually his presentation really inspired me, and he did a good job of depicting water. And this is, since I'm a water person, and this images that you see connects me to the concept of lake turnover. Right now, outside in our lakes here in Canada, what we see is the lake turnover process, where the upper layer of the lake, which in summertime was high 22 degrees Celsius, and the bottom is always 4 degrees, because that's the temperature at which the water sinks. It's at its densest. So the temperature at the bottom always remains 4 degrees. The lake, the water is turning, the warm water is settling down, the cool water comes up, and the upper layer gets frozen. And you would think in wintertime, what can survive in this frozen lake? But life survives underneath because the temperature is 4 degrees. So what the beauty of that lake turnover inspired me to think about: keep your core temperature at 4 degrees always. Does not matter how the temperature is outside, how cold or warm it is outside. The core right here should be 4 degrees Celsius. And that will help you nurture and take care of the species that depend on you. So thank you for listening and indulging me.
Thank you so much, Ramila. That was so beautiful and touching. And I think it leads really beautifully into our next and final contributor, Jose, who is a civil engineer who also works with water. And I found his story really fascinating. His interest in the emotional connections and narratives around water in public spaces really set him apart from other civil engineers working on, looking at pipes and different things. So I'm very excited to invite Jose to join us on screen to tell us a little bit more about the work that you do and what you find beauty is.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you everybody for being present and for this opportunity. My name is Jose. I'm joining from the traditional tourist Mexican Nahua. I'm in a small town called our city. And I'm doing this work for my father and for my nephew, the past and the present and everything they represent. And not only mine, not only my father and my nephew, but everybody else, grandparents and grandchildren. And I'm particularly thinking of those who were and are prosecuted, as Cynthia said. And I'm going to tell you a bit of a story about how I found beauty, or at least how I found beauty recently. I had done a trip to visit my family in July. I'm from Spain, but I don't live there. And it was a very special visit because I had, after 1 year without seeing them, I was going to meet my newborn nephew. My sister had a baby and I hadn't met him. We were to spending time with my parents. I live abroad. Seeing your parents, how they age, always time you will be able to see them. So I'm looking forward to spend with both my nephew and my parents. And it turned out that with my father in his physical form. But I was planned to be a joyful trip, ended up being a trip full of anxiety and sorrow, as I didn't know if I was going to make it. I didn't know.
Jose, I'm wondering if you can turn your video off and maybe your broadcast voice can become clearer. So Rebecca, maybe what we should do is
Yeah, Jose's not here, Leslie.
okay.
Okay.
So he did have connectivity issues earlier today. So thanks.
All right. Well, hopefully we can get Jose back to join us. I see
sorry.
you are back, Jose. It's okay. I know the internet where you are is not very stable. But
yeah, I think based on what Jim explained this weekend, I think we were suffering the same atmospheric event because there was flooding and even some people died. So I think it's just the issue with my internet. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm going to restart from when I left it. Hopefully I can make it to the end. So it turned out to be that the last time I saw my father, at least in his physical form, what was planned to be a joyful and playful trip ended up being a trip full of anxiety and sorrow, not knowing whether I was going to make it in time to see him. I didn't know that pain existed. I didn't realize it was a possibility that my parents wouldn't be there. And it broke my heart in little pieces. And the only thing that helped, in addition to having my family and partner around me, was to experience beauty. And beauty was in unexpected places. Beauty was to enjoy a homemade meal, was to spend time with my newborn nephew, a hike with the group that my father used to walk with, jumping into a small water stream in the middle of the countryside. Beauty was to experience life, to be alive. And as I just learned from some of my fellow presenters or colleagues, not only to experience the bright places, but also the dark places, because they also can show you, you can learn a lot from them and you can see beauty in them as well. Yeah, thank you.
thank you so much, Jose. I'm sorry for those technical problems, but I'm really honored and glad that you were able to come back in and share that powerful story of finding beauty, not just in the beautiful and happy moments, but that beauty really helps kind of insulate us and helps our hearts heal when we can find and look at and see beauty even in the dark spaces. So thank you so much for that. And now we're going to look into and start to understand what beauty is trying to tell us. And I'm going to invite Hillary to come back onto the screen to help us moderate this section. So Hillary, please come join me and let's dig into what is beauty trying to tell us.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And I've cried a few times during those last presentations. So I'm trying to hold it together right now because there's such power in the beauty that was described. And so I'm going to ask that Cynthia come back on screen, Ramila come back on screen, Jay come back on screen, Jose come back on screen, and Hugo come back on screen. And we're going to have a little fireside chat around what is beauty trying to tell us, because we had such a range. We had an amazing declaration. We had beautiful stories. We had powerful anecdotes. And we were very moving, all under the banner of what is beauty. And it's all what's fascinating is that you wouldn't have beauty without the ugly. You know, as Hugo showed, there's always you have to have the two, like dark. You don't have dark without light. And finding the beauty, as Jay was talking about, is finding that beauty inside the darkness, the same as what Ramila was talking about. And having lived in many dark times, it's the hardest thing to do. It is the absolute, I believe, for me personally, the hardest thing to do, to find the beauty in the darkness. After the fact, you can go, oh yeah, that was, I could see it now, but it's, you know, when it's happening, it's very hard. But beauty, as you've all described it, has some very important messages for us. And it's trying to give us some very important insight. So I'm just going to throw it open. This is a fireside chat in terms of when you're moved to speak. Please speak. If someone says something you connect to, please put your hand up, and we're just going to have a popcorn kind of we're going to put some popcorn on the fire and have a conversation about what is beauty, given all we've heard, trying to tell us right now. Who would like to start off? Rami.
Thanks, Hilary. This was amazing. Just learned so much from all of you. So I just wanted to kind of continue with my narrative about Christy and what I learned from her. So one of the Sustainable Development Goals, right? So eradication of poverty. And then for my second image, the waters, SDG 6. So we do need drastic makeover when we talk about girl child or their education or poverty, and relating it to Christy. She was my inspiration to continue in this path, to find what I can do, what changes I can make. So what I did was through my girls, right? And my students, I can pass on what I learned through my life. And I took the girls to India in 2016, and they volunteered at the same orphanage that I was volunteering. So that was something of beauty that emerged out of that experience. So Maya, who has joined us now, she will be talking about her experiences with beauty and what she has learned. And as a 19-year-old, what kind of features she sees. So that's my lesson that I learned from going through the journey of finding beauty, and also to, as Leslie pointed out, a call to action element on the second painting I showed you is to keep your core temperature 4 degrees Celsius always, so that you can nurture your surroundings. And Hilary, that's what I always, when I see you and see your struggles and rewards and what you go through, I always am reminded of your 4 degrees. Your core is always 4 degrees, so you can support people who are dependent on you. That's beauty for me.
Thanks, Rami. That's great. So you're from what I'm hearing from you, it's that call to action. It is having the courage to actually take action and to move into action. So beauty is very much a driver for action. That's and telling us we have to move. We have to move. Who wants to pick up from there?
I'll go.
Jay.
That's because that, when I asked myself again the question of what is beauty trying to show us or teach us, it's not enough to just be aware, because that was the first answer, was be aware of me. And that's where the choice is. Look and you'll find it. But once you find it, you now have a responsibility. So that is the other thing I find it asks me is create me. Create me. It's not enough that I can look at the beauty and just sit on it. If I look at the beauty and I become it, now I radiate it. And now I have a responsibility to grow it, right? And I think that is the next step for us. It is action. Action is, that's where our real power is, and that ability to create. I'll tell you a story that stayed with me for years. I was living in Brazil. I was living with a lot of women, about 200 women, many of them from Africa and Bolivia, Colombia, Brazil. And we were living in I'll call it a compound for a lack of a better word. And we would pray together once a week. 200 of us would hold hands outside. And Brazilians were amazing in that they would give the floor to other women to sing a song, a hymn. So we would sing African hymns. We would sing Brazilian hymns, Bolivian hymns. We all began to know each other's prayer songs. And when we would hold hands, all of us with all of our pain and all of our suffering, in that moment, we came together to heal and to create. And you would see that when someone was moved by the song or the moment, they would raise their hand. And we were attached, so you would have to raise your hand and honor the person beside you. And from the ashes of our pain, we grew these moments of strength and beauty, and that is something that's never left me. That's something that until this day, even though it is, I agree with you, Hilary, it is very hard to find beauty when you are in the depths of despair. But one micro decision towards it will get you there if you look for it. And then from there, pay it forward, right? And so I'll pass to anyone who wants to go for it.
And that's absolutely beautiful, because it is in the moment, in the micro decision, right? It's in the moment and micro decision that new meaning can happen. And it's in that nanosecond that something can switch. Who wants to pick up on that? Or take it in another direction?
I guess I would say that what it all tells me, I mean, just listening to everybody, is that we have, I think, a responsibility to restore the respect for women that was once very much a part of who we were. And, you know, and I think Lee Miracle puts it really well. When Lee Miracle talks about, you know, the planet and how we are, that overdevelopment, and how we are ripping and tearing at the planet, which is feminine. It's regarded as Mother Earth. And she said, and, you know, and we need to see the direct correlation between the ripping and tearing of women and the missing and murdered and the rapes. And not only in Canada, the United States, but in virtually every country, women have been completely disrespected. And maybe it's about fear, and maybe it's about their ability to birth. Maybe it's about, you know, control. But no matter what it's about, I think we have to really start to understand that that is our responsibility, is to create a restoration or regenerative process around women. Thank you.
Beautiful, Cynthia. Thank you. Jose.
What Jay said about the moment, and I think our actions, right? Small actions or micro actions, I think Leslie called it, made me think of also what that animation that Hugo created that has flow and repress. And I think flow and being able to be vulnerable and to make space for taking these decisions or feeling these moments that are a bit, you don't really know what's going to happen, but you are still able to leave a space for them to happen. I think that really is a powerful tool, instead of repressing, instead of trying to get you back on track all the time, or what is supposed to be on track according to different criteria.
Absolutely, and stepping into the unknown, into that space where you're not quite sure where you're going to go, and sensing into it. But as picking up on what Cynthia is talking about, having that sense of regeneration, of that sense of healing, that sense of wanting to be part of that process of deep healing, and allowing that to happen. And when we sense into it, it happens from a different place in us. It happens from a different experience, It isn't coming from our head saying, you should do this. It's coming from a totally different kind of place. Hugo, what's coming to mind for you in this, in what beauty is trying to tell us?
Yes, thank you, Hilary. I think I'm really sensing the idea of in the moment and going into the side of hope and heal, moving from being aware to creating an action. So really going and live it in two main axes. As one is to respect each other, and that will include many other lives. And those lives will be different species and different structures that we are actually just classifying things in a specific way. And the other one is that we need to regenerate. And regenerate is about to heal again. So this idea of staying in water, to understanding that this positive energy and this energy of life comes from the feminine, I think it ties very closely beauty and feminine, but it is important and it is clear that we cannot do it without each other. So I would say that taking the feminine side of that action will be how to move forward as a species and collaborate to go together in a way that actually works. So,
and what does actually work look like for you?
So if it's about respect, and then that made me think about harmony and kindness, and this is where I will be aligned to the context. So why to try to impose ourselves to the context, to an ecosystem, for example, when the beauty is already there? And by respecting and by regenerating, we can actually add value to the place instead of just taking something out. More than recognizing it, of course, is important, but what is our human niche if we are about to add value to the bigger system, and we can do it in our own territory? So sometimes also beauty looks like a new bird that I didn't know was in the neighborhood, and that is because I'm just leaving the worms in my garden, so that I'm just regenerating on the only part that I have, and that belongs to me, and I'm doing this action from my own self. So I feel really blessed in a way to have this kind of harmony close to me. So I think if we go towards this direction of values and respecting each other and finding a solution instead of these are my toys, these are your toys, and let's fight and kill each other, we can really find beautiful ways, and that takes beauty. Like when you see nature, you know it's beautiful, but you cannot understand immediately the mathematics behind. That is also complex, but it is first beautiful.
I want to pick up on that in terms of a little story about my own backyard. And in my own backyard, I have, it's just because I've allowed a lot of, I'm in a downtown of a small town, but I have a very large yard, and I have beautiful trees. And there's a lot of, when I allowed it to just go to become its natural place again, I had all kinds of animals return and all kinds of birds return. And there is what I call the Council of Squirrels that are our neighborhood squirrels, and they're a council. When I'm really stuck on something, I will go out, I will sit in my garden, I will ask the council to come because I'm really struggling. And squirrels are amazing because they work at the very tops of the trees and down at the very bottoms of the ground. And so they are very complex, and they work with sacred geometry. And so because they bury they take when they're burying something, they very careful how they place it, so in context to other places around it, so they'll remember where to find it. I wish I had that intelligence in my home. But I think that it's in the beauty is as we see these character, rather than just seeing them as squirrels, when I relate to them as my counsel, they become very different, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. And they so anybody else got a story like that about your own connection with nature in a different way, or seeing things, giving it a certain different lens through which to relate?
No, I don't have a lot of animals, although animals certainly teach us a lot of very important things, and they know how to keep us in line. But I was thinking, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about Scott Peck and a story he tells about the rabbi and the priest who got together, and at the end of this long conversation over many days, I think it was the rabbi told the priest that God was at his monastery. And he said, when he went back, and he started to treat everybody differently because one of them could have been God. And he's like, could it be Father, brother, this or Father that, and in the end he thought, well, what if it's me, and he started treating himself better, and then everybody in the monastery came back and came alive, and people started to join it and everything because of that very thing, because all of a sudden he started seeing everyone and himself in a very different light as possibly God, and everything changed.
So true. So true. What a that's a fabulous story. I'd forgotten that one. So thank you. And anybody else got a story like that, in terms of when we just start to see something a little bit, we give a different lens, and all of a sudden something becomes beautiful that wasn't before?
Yeah. Actually, from the summer when I was back home with my father passing, my partner and I took a short walk in the evening to decompress and just be outside of it. And I'm really bad with seeing wildlife. She always makes jokes because I need like half an hour to see, like the animal has to stop in front of me for me to be able to see it. I'm really bad. And that specific day, I was just really good at it. And that specific day, I saw so much wildlife. It's amazing. I mean, I never seen like foxes in my small town. I never seen deer. We saw a wild goat. We saw so many birds, and it's just amazing. And I don't know what. Probably I was the one paying more attention because they lived there, or I was in a different state of mind. But it was a bit of a message for me saying like, well, it's here, beauty is here. You just have to open your eyes and maybe be patient and go with the flow instead of being stuck on seeing this or that.
So true that slowing down to allow ourselves to see something, to allow ourselves to sense something, to allow ourselves to feel something. You know, that certainly has been a story of the last 18 months for many of us that have been forced to take that time to reflect, to be able to be part of something that much larger than ourselves, to be able to slow down and see what's around us. Rami.
Yes, I just wanted to mention something, not sharing another story, but something that I tell my children and my students is when things get complex and complicated, when you don't know what to do, where to turn to, just have a list of 5 things. It's called checklist, CHECK. And this was when my children were very young, so it was easy for them. Do you have your checklist ready? So what does that mean? C is for courage, H for humility, E for empathy, C for confidence, and K for knowledge. So everything based on that solid knowledge. Seek knowledge. Don't just, oh, I have to write an exam and just get good marks. So if you have those checklists in your back pocket, you will never fail. But also be aware that with courage, also you can be a coward. With humility, hubris. With empathy, there could be apathy. With confidence, there could be low confidence. With knowledge, there could be ignorance, right? So there's always the flip side. So which side you choose to channelize is in your hands. And nobody can, tell you or guide you. It has to come from you and within. So you pick what you want to pick between confidence versus cowardice, whether humility versus hubris, you pick that. So those 5 things I've always found that it comes in handy in finding beauty, in finding the desire to move forward.
What a great checklist. And I remember years back when the internet was first starting to come on board, first starting to become a reality. And I was part of creating the first Canadian National Internet Show. And we invited a fellow by the name of John Perry Barlow to come and be part of it because he talked about knowledge as a life form. And he talked about the internet being an ecosystem. At the time, everybody was talking about it being a highway. And he totally reframed how many people saw the internet from looking at it as an ecosystem. But not that long ago, I was doing some visioning in terms of looking into the future. And one of it was taking my granddaughter, who was at the time 5, and putting her into 2080, at what time she would have been 65 in 2080. She will be 65 in 2080. And in that conversation with her, as she was being 65, I asked her what she did for a living, and she said she was a knowledge farmer. And I thought, what an interesting way to look at knowledge, that it's something that grows, it's a life form, it changes. And there's such beauty inside knowledge when it's discovered, sometimes when you hear something and you think it's for the first time you've heard a piece of knowledge, and it's like it's yours. You can't, it's so exciting and new. And the fact that millions of other people know that doesn't really matter. You've got this new connection to something. And so that whole idea of seeing the beauty inside something that we tend to think of as static is something that's also really important. Jay, you look like you're about to say something.
I'm not. I'm actually just listening. I'm sure I could certainly find something to say, Hill. I'm never short on words. But maybe you saw something cross my eyes, because it did trigger this idea of being playful. I think sometimes when we talk about this subject, and me, I know I can be quite intense, just because of what I've been exposed to in my life. But one thing I'm learning lately is to be a bit more playful. So when we talk about feminine energy, which is actually feminine masculine energy, is a hot topic amongst the girls lately, especially, you know, dating is it's rough out here in Toronto. I don't know how it is where everyone else is, but this concept of feminine energy comes up all the time, and especially as independent women, we're like, oh gosh, we're so alpha male, and we have to learn how to be, you know, feminine and receptive, and a lot of my personal friends are like, well, we don't want to be feminine, that's weak, right? And so then the conversation goes into what is feminine really, and it's this really powerful thing, but it's powerful because it's playful, because it can be curious. And in this curiosity, you get to learn and you get to open more, and you don't have to be a rigid thing. We can leave that for the masculine, more masculine energy, and allow ourselves. And I think this is where we have a duty as women too, to understand that we are the beauty in being, you know, a woman is that we do this quite well if we allow ourselves to do it, right? And so being playful, being curious, being humble allows you to know that there's more to learn, right? And then the duty becomes like, gosh, what am I doing with this knowledge again? Create, nurture, birth more, right? And there's some fun in that. It doesn't have to be so serious. Right?
Absolutely.
This is something I'm learning, because I could get, like I said, I'm learning how to step into this energy a little bit more. It's on the list for 2022. Have some more fun.
That's fabulous. Fabulous. I think that's something we could all do more of in 2022, is a lot more laughter and a lot more play. And as we play, I also remember reading Suzanne Ackerman's book, Deep Play, and how she talks about baby tigers and how when they are playing, they are learning every single thing they need to learn in order to survive. And if they didn't play when they were small like that, they wouldn't survive. And I think about, you know, how we can encourage the kind of play that for children today that will give them this sense of thriving, as opposed to the kind of play that we often put kids into. So it's again, we're coming up now to the end of this segment, and I just want to offer anybody who would like to, we've had a really beautiful, thank you, a roaming but it's very, very powerful conversation that beauty is taking us in some very beautiful directions. And if we listen to beauty and the energy of beauty and the power of beauty, it's not only restorative and regenerative, it's curious, it's playful. It takes us into the unknown in ways that perhaps we would not have imagined. And we can also work with the whole idea of that humility and empathy as we do that. But it will take courage. It will take courage. So anybody would like to, for any final words on for this, where is beauty taking us? Rami.
It's taking us to our or anybody's generosity of appreciation, how we open our eyes towards beauty. So the eyes of beholder, anything that I behold as beautiful becomes beautiful. So generosity,
wow.
of appreciation.
That's gorgeous.
It's also taking
Anybody else?
It's taking us to empathy and compassion as well.
Empathy and compassion. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I am now going to we're now going to move into the next sort of segment, and I want to thank you all very much. We had a rich beginning in what is beauty, and we've been able to play with that and look at what that can how that can become something, and how we can become through this idea of what is beauty. We're now going to go into a reflection mode, and we have a couple of individuals to help us reflect. But in order to make that transition, we're going to play a little spoken word, and this spoken word is by a wonderful artist by the name of Mel White. And I heard her last week give this spoken word at a session on the well-being economy. And it just moved me so much. And so I reached out to her, and she gladly gave us permission to be able to hear this. This is a recording of the new mythology that she made in 2018. I want to say that again, 2018, because when you listen to it, it sounds like it was written during the pandemic. She has the gift of prophecy, as many poets do and many artists do. And and she said she would have liked to have re-recorded it, but she didn't have time to do it for today. But it is a beautiful piece. And so, Rick, if we could now play the new mythology as we transition going into now our reflection time.
It started in a dark place. There were those who believed it started with a big bang, and those who believed it started with a word from the lips of one man. But the truth was, it started underground. It started the way all things start to grow. It started in a dark place in the harsh depths of winter. It started with a seed bomb. It started under the ground, in the graves of Palestinians, in the rubble that remained of a town, in the eyes of a woman covered by a burqa. It started in a dark place. Started on the skin of children that laboured in sweatshops, raked through landfills mined for cobalt. It started in slums without sunlight. It started in a dark place. It started in the guts of fish suffocated by plastic, in the last gasp of the polar bear, in the horn of a rhino prized by poachers. It started when sea levels rose, when the earth was quaking and people fled their homes amid floods and droughts and hurricanes. It started in a dark place. It started underground. It started in tower blocks, in tenements and homeless shelters, hobbit holes and squats with windows, boarded curtains closed. It started in a dark place. It started underground, in tunnels dug to protest the cutting of trees and the laying of pipelines. It started with campaigns and petitions, with banners and parades. It started on Facebook pages. It started a community of strangers. It started in student bars and warehouse parties, at campfires when guitars were passed around. It started with conversation. It started with education. It started with meditation. It started the way all things start to grow. It started with slowing down. It started with stopping. It started when we stopped pushing forward and pulled back into the earth. It started a cycle of rebirth when the trees had shed their leaves and people stopped believing in eternal growth. It started with letting go of greed, with letting there be winter so that seeds could sprout again. It started in a dark place. It started in barren soil in former carbon sinks where forests were clear-felled. It started in arid desert scrub where nomads dwelled. It started in the ears of those who could hear the whispers of water. It started with stories told to their daughters. It started with listening to the moon. It started in silence. It started in unspoken dialects. It started without violence. It started with a vision. It started when mankind was asleep. It started creeping into dreamtime and wrapping round our feet with the tenacity of bindweed. It started to unite us, to rewrite the pathology learned in our childhood. It started a new mythology, a new awareness that the biosphere is shared. People started to care. They started to look for solutions. It started a revolution. It ended pollution, ended oppression, ended the perception that human nature's cruel and survival of the fittest meant every man for himself. It ended poverty and wealth. It ended war. There were those who believed it would end with a big bang, and those who believed there was no end to the damage done by man. But the truth was, it ended the way it all began. It shrank back into the earth, fertilized the soil. It prepared the ground for the future. It ended the way all things cease to grow.
When we were putting together today's exploration on beauty as we launch Girl-Driven Solutions and the Women's Summit, we felt that after we had a chance to listen deeply into the question of what is beauty and what is beauty trying to tell us, that we hear the reflective observations of two different generational women, one from an older generation and one from our youth. And so it was with deep pleasure that I'm welcoming Barbara Vickar onto the panel with me right now, who is going to reflect on what she's heard. Barbara is the former CEO of the Kopala Center for Yoga and Health and the former president of Goddard College. I know Barbara as my sane, wonderful, intelligent, wise, and gifted friend. Barbara.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. Oh, I just have to start by saying that was so rich. I feel so moved by the energy, the feminine energy that shaped this conversation and the initiative of Girl-Driven Solutions. There was playfulness, curiosity, receptivity. And then I was really noticing how the conversation was being built and birthed by inviting all the voices. I'm sitting here feeling renewed and inspired. And I just want to start by saying my reflections cannot possibly capture the fullness and richness of this conversation, but I offer them in this moment. And I offer them, I'm speaking from the unceded Mohican territory of the Stockbridge Munsee Band of Mohicans. And I also sit here very cognizant that I'm doing this work for my grandchildren. I have 5 beautiful grandchildren, for my children, and also for the generations that came before me, my ancestors, and those that will come. So I share these. They are top of the moment for me and top of mind, but could not capture the fullness and depth of what we just heard. What I was really struck by was in a time of catastrophe for our planet, a time of code red, a time of so much suffering and destruction. What is possible when we approach the world's to-do list from a life-affirming perspective? What is possible when we come from an understanding of the true meaning of beauty? And I loved that the practice of uncovering the essence of something and bringing it into the light. That is birth. And what is possible, as Jose pointed out, when we look for beauty in the dark spaces. It is so easy right now to see the darkness and be overwhelmed by it. But what is possible when we see the beauty there? And in a time of darkness and a time when people are really feeling powerless, I was also struck by the power of choosing our lens. When we choose a lens of beauty, an attitude of gratitude and hope, how does the work change? And when we come from that perspective, how does it stand in stark contrast to a perspective of greed and self-interest? I loved the unexpected nature of beauty that people started to describe. And that really took us into the work, which is what is beauty trying to tell us? And what I really heard people talking about was herein lies the work. Seeing beauty in the dark has the power when we see it to show us what changes are necessary. It becomes a catalyst for change. And once we see the change that is necessary, we are called to own responsibility. And what I mean by that, when I heard it being spoken, it wakes up our ability to respond. And that response is the response of then creating beauty. It is not just to see the beauty, but it is to be called to our ability to respond, which is to create beauty. And I thought about that in reference to where we are right now in the world and the SDGs. So for example, I thought about reduce inequality. What would the makeover look like if we approached it from the perspective of creating beauty, of seeing the beauty that exists and creating beauty? I loved the conversation. I thought the conversation about regenerating the feminine and actually started to happen in the conversation. The content and the process started to reflect one another as people began to sense in the moment and speak from their experience, and how different it is when we allow ourselves to sense in the moment. And what emerged then was a conversation about respecting what is. When we sense in the moment, we begin to see what is, and what is becomes our counsel. I think there was a description of that from Scott Peck's perspective of seeing the God in all, and that it is not static, it is ever changing. I am going to just call back what Ramila said. I thought that the metaphor in the lake turnover, it spoke so strongly to me, and particularly as I am raising children and grandchildren and thinking about the world they're living in, and how do we see the beauty, sense in the moment, respect what is, and the sort of help was in the story about lake turnover. It's as the seasons turn, as change happens, as we experience turbulence around us, how do we hold our temperature stable in a way that nurtures and keeps us alive? And that struck me as one of the most important prescriptions. As we take on the work of listening to what the beauty has to tell us, we must also be able to hold ourselves stable as we move awareness into action. That's the way that we embody the power that we have in order to make those changes. And so I'm grateful and honored to have been even a small part of this conversation. I am so excited about it moving forward as we think about the makeover that's needed in order for us to do the work that is necessary to remake the SDGs into the GDSs, and as we attempt and work to see the beauty in a world where right now it is so easy to see the shadow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to now welcome onto our panel, our conversation, Maya Verma, who is a young, vibrant woman of a generation that we are calling in to this work. And Maya, thank you for being in this moment with us and sharing with us your views, because you are for much of what we do doing this for.
Thank you everyone for having me. Thank you, Leslie. So I'm Romila's daughter. I'm in my second year of university at the University of Waterloo, doing a peace and conflict studies major and a psychology minor. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of my generation, or Gen Z, I guess. As well, I can't speak for everybody in my generation. I feel like I can speak for most people, especially young women in my generation. I feel like while everyone does have different opinions and views, we all face similar problems. So talking about my generation and how we're all feeling, most people in my generation are feeling lately unhappy and angry at the world today, especially in COVID times and all of that. It's like me personally, I missed out a lot for COVID. Senior prom, graduation, first year university, all gone due to COVID. But thankfully things are now like looking up and things are getting better. And another thing is I wanted to mention about how we're turning the SDGs into GDS, which is girl-driven solutions. I think that is a really good idea for kids my age, for women my age, because lately there's been a lot of violence and discrimination and things like that against women these days. I'm not sure if everyone has heard, or a couple weeks ago or a month ago even, about University of Western. They had the around 30 women, girls my age, got spiked at a party through drinks. And I don't think people can see how dangerous it is for women to even leave the house sometimes. Like me, I live alone in an apartment for school. I never want to leave my house alone past like 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. because you don't know what will happen when you're walking alone on the street at night. And I think that this issue is very overlooked, especially through like, you know, authority figures like law enforcement, all those feel like they don't take it as seriously as they should, which is why a lot of people don't get any consequences for things like this, like spiking drinks or things like that. And I think making the GDSs is a really good idea because I feel like a lot of people need to learn how to act better, I guess, in a way. A lot of things that what I've noticed throughout seeing things and experiencing things is that hate and discrimination and all of those things are taught. I don't think, maybe I am wrong, but I don't think that people just wake up one day and think, I'm gonna be homophobic or I'm gonna be racist or anything like that. It's taught through environments, through parental influences, friends, school. Social media has one of the biggest impacts on youth these days, and myself included. I won't even deny that. So I feel like it's a good idea to teach other people what is right and wrong. But of course, one big question I've always had is who decides what is right or wrong. So I guess there's no way to really prove that. But I do think that teaching people, men, women, anybody, even, you know, like men can get harassed, men can, like all of that big debate topic that a lot of people like to talk about. So I feel like making sure that people are learning and educating themselves to not be to not act like these certain ways is a really good idea. So I feel like the GDS is a good way to do that and to teach others. And when I was in elementary school a couple years ago, they had this thing called the Unlearn program. I wasn't a part of it at the time in elementary school, but now looking back at it, I feel like I should have been a part of it. The Unlearn program is basically a club at my school, I guess, where they taught, you know, how to fight against racism or homophobia or sexism or anything like that. And basically the whole thing is to show everyone how to unlearn what they already know and to grow and learn through new experiences. And as well as my mom mentioned how, this is kind of a different topic now, but my mom mentioned how when we went to India in 2016, about 5-ish years ago, we went and we visited one of the orphanages that she used to volunteer at when she was a kid. And going through that experience, seeing all of those, you know, children in an orphanage and being in India in general for me was a real eye opener because it made me realize how much privilege I have living in like Canada or like a westernized country, being able to have proper education, having really good parents and parental influences, as I realize a lot of people don't have that in their lives, especially at my age. A lot of people I know have very bad relationships with their parents or, you know, adult figures in general. And it makes up for them to, you know, they act out and all of that because they don't have that influence in their life. So big thing for me is what I've realized is that everyone has privilege in their own ways. Obviously, like some people have more privilege than others. And me being majority, like a minority in most cases, women, person of color, all of those types of things, I still realize my privilege and I still realize the things that I can do to help other people. You know, I live in a Western country. I have access to education. I have access to food and a roof over my head and all of those things, which a lot of people do not have, which is, again, a really big problem because a lot of people don't even have the proper resources and things that they have to live, which is, again, for me, what, like, personally, I guess one of my biggest issues with the world, which goes back to saying why my entire generation is angry. We all have no idea what we're doing, basically, especially with COVID and everything. Everything's been shut down. A lot of people at my age hasn't even stepped foot onto a university campus yet, or done a lot of things that people my age should be doing. And I know a lot of people see the younger generations as like lazy or unappreciative or things like that. And personally, I see how that can go ahead, but I also believe that our generation really was like let down, I feel like, is one of the biggest things I can say. Not saying like it's nobody's fault, obviously, there's no real cause for this issue. It's just that we were kind of given like the very bad hand in life, I guess, basically within the past couple of years. And another thing, when we were watching that video, the video, as they said, was created in 2018, or the concept. And one thing that I wanted to mention is how everything in that video that she talked about, still, all of the ideas in that video, the issues are still happening today. And this is 3 years later, almost 4, it's almost 2022. And all of the issues and things that we've been having for the past 10 plus years are still happening today. If not, I feel like they're getting worse. And I feel like it's our job as the future of the world, essentially, is how I like to see it in a way. I'm not sure if that's like an incorrect way to see it, but I see our generation, people younger than us, as the future of the world. You know, the future doctors, future engineers, future lawyers, everyone that's in school right now, trying their best to get to where they want to be. So as the future of basically the world and everything, it's really scary to see how in the past 10 years, how nothing has changed. In the video, she talked about like Palestine and all of that. And as a couple months ago, there was that big Israel-Palestine war conflict that they had. So I feel like the fact that things are still happening today that happened years ago is really concerning to me, especially knowing like, when is it going to be fixed? Are we even going to be able to live to be like in our 40s and 50s, or will climate change get to us first? Like, we all don't really know. You know, we don't know what's going to happen, how things are going to play out, and all of that. So I feel like it is very concerning for us. So doing the whole like what is beauty and thing is a good thing, I feel like, for us, because it gives us something to be like, oh yes, this may suck, but what's beautiful about it? You know, what's like, for me, beauty is subjective. I feel like everyone has a different definition of beauty. For me personally, it's inner beauty. I'm the type of person, I love wearing makeup, I love fashion, I love anything like that. You know, that's my thing. I enjoy, that's something I really enjoy, fashion and makeup and all of that. But even though I'm like that, for me, beauty is inner beauty. It's who you are on the inside. It's how you treat other people. It's how you go about your day, you know. And someone mentioned this, I'm sorry, I forgot who, but someone mentioned how it's difficult when you're in despair and you're all upset and everything. It's hard to look for beauty because of how you're viewing everything. You know, you have like a heavy mind, and it's all just, everything is like, oh, this sucks, I hate everything. That kind of mindset that I feel like a lot of people my age have these days. It's very hard to look for beauty when you're in that kind of mindset, which is a reason why I think a lot of kids have a very negative mindset, because they are basically trying to find beauty when everything sucks these days. And I think that's why our generation has been deemed lazy or unappreciative, because we haven't been able to do these things due to COVID mostly, I would say, and things like that. So overall, I think that this is a really good idea, and everything, and the SDGs and everything. SDGs turning into the GDSs, I think overall is a really good idea. And yeah, and that's just my voice from this generation, or as much as I can say how we are feeling through all of this. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Maya, I mean, I'm sitting here in a moment of reflection around the fear, the anger, that you feel this now in the streets of Canada. What does that mean about the streets in other nations that are war-struck? What does this mean for, you know, my granddaughter who's 6 now, and what she has to face when all she's done is go to school wearing a mask and not being able to touch? I want to simply say that this is the birthplace of what we're doing and why. The Girl-Driven Solutions is about taking action that Maya so clearly has stated has not been taken. I listened into the post-pandemic review by the UN and looking at what was going to happen as a result of the pandemic. And what struck me is the notion of money, that only 3% of developed nations are funded in terms of agriculture, and yet it's 30% of their economy. Just even those figures that we've been working on for decades are still crippled. When we look at only less than 4% of Africans are immunized against COVID, under 4%. What does that tell us about what we are doing and where we're at? But our job at GDS is not to simply look at the despair. Our mandate is to switch into a new regeneration where life will flow from this moment on. And over the next several months, we are gathering all of you and partner organizations to put together the makeover of the SDGs. FemQ has joined us in partnership, as others have, to build the coalition that's going to be needed to take these solutions into the world. Yes, we're going to, over the next several months, make over one of the SDGs to profile in our summit. And then during the summit, we're going to make over 4 other SDGs with science, with art, with beauty, with action. But we need a firm ecosystem in which to birth these solutions. And so we're gathering partners from around the world to birth girl-driven solutions into. And this is the call to you, individuals, organizations, to join us as we make over 5 of the top world to-do list items from a place of regeneration, from the place of the feminine intelligence, from the place of where the male and the female come together and we manifest into a different agenda. That's our call. Please join us. Rebecca's going to put in the website. Please register with us. Please come in and be whatever role you wish to be in how we are going to align information together. Jim, I'm going to welcome you back in now. I know we're running a bit over time, but there we are.
Right. Well, when you take on a subject as vast as beauty, you have arguably taken on the biggest domain of them all. You know, it's just listening to you all. I just want to echo Leslie's thanks to all of you for your considerations of this very deep and profound and vast subject. You know, and it took me back to Plato's Symposium and to Diotima, the old wise crone who taught Socrates the pathways of love, what they call the ladder of love, and even love in Diotima's view of the world bows at the altar of beauty, and the relationship between beauty and love, and her notion that it's in fact our capacity to love that animates beauty within us, and that love is the great magnetic pull of the universe toward beauty. And so I hope you all will reconvene down the trail, because this is a very powerful impulse in us all, particularly in a time of chaos, ugliness, division, and exploitation. It actually animates a deeper yearning for beauty. And that is what I think is quickening all of you on this panel, all of the activists that are trying to build a better world. It's love working through us toward a more beautiful and seamless living ecology. So I want to just thank everybody for just refracting that today. It's very important for us to bear in mind. And Maya, I just like to maybe close, Maya, by just thanking you and honoring you and the voices of youth. It pains me beyond words, in fact, that your generation lives in a deep anxiety about whether our species is going to survive, given what's coming. And so part of what I think is in order on at least for those of us who are older, is a deep apology that somehow we weren't mindful enough of beauty to keep the world intact so that you could be as beautiful as you truly are inside and outside, without the doubt of survival. And I think that's where we all are on planet Earth right now. We've so squandered the beautiful that we are now about ready to forfeit our capacity to appreciate the beautiful. Mm. And we are in code red thereby. And part of the global regeneration core that is coming out of Humanity Rising is an impulse toward a multi-generational collaboration, but really around empowering young people, because you are going to take the hit and you have the longest distance ahead to navigate a world now that's going to be characterized by escalating turbulence. Mm. And so beauty will become more elusive and more apparent simultaneously. It'll become more elusive in the external environment of increasing turbulence, but it'll burn more powerfully in all of our hearts and souls to motivate us, as humanity is now being called into account, to fashion a global civilization worthy of the word. So Leslie, thank you, and Hillary and all of you, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. It's a very timely reminder before the world turns its attention 1 week from today on the Conference of Parties and what we're going to do in the presence of Code Red. In the end, it's that combination of love and beauty that will serve our capacity to survive. So thank you, everyone. This has been very powerful. We're now at the end of our time. We will be convening tomorrow, and we'll be considering a shamanic perspective on these matters, the Jaguar path. And we'll be hearing from Ray and Nina Christ and some of the elders of the Quiro people down in Peru. interesting variant here on beauty as we close. These were a people that 500 years ago witnessed the Spanish conquest of Peru. And they knew that their world was ending. And they fled back up into the Andes Mountains so far that they survived for over 500 years untouched, like the Koji did in Colombia. And about 10 years ago, they started to come down the mountain. And their elders came down, they said, to warn us that we are in a critical moment. So the animation of beauty in the world today, the quickening of this awareness in our hearts and souls and minds and bodies could not be more important. And you are the first panel in 346 days of Humanity Rising that has brought this to our conscious awareness. And it's perfect, Leslie, that this was done through the girl-driven solutions. Wonderful, beautiful, well done.
Well, and you know that because we're women, we have to have the last word, Jim.
Please, I was just going to turn it over to you and however you're going to do it.
So, just to say the essence of beauty is when strength and fragility come together. And our strength comes from those that we do this for. And so we're going to close with a video, and I'm going to turn it over to Hillary and Rebecca to do our final piece on this broadcast.
But thank you very deeply. Beautifully done.
Over to you, Hill.
Okay. I'd just like to also thank our wonderful panelists who did such a great job. Ramila, Jay, Maya, Jose, Cynthia, Hugo. It's just been a joy to be on the panel with you. So here is how we are. And Rebecca, you are penultimate. So thank you for being a team member on this one. And I just want to acknowledge that we do this for so many different people and for so many different reasons. And we want to end this with beauty. And we want to end this with the beauty of the people that we do this for. My grandchildren are probably one of the primary ones in my children. And so these are some of the faces and connections of the people that we actually do this work for. So thank you all very much for engaging with us and for being with us today. And we are, we're on to girl-driven solutions now.
Yes, and as we end our time together, we ask those that are in the audience to please take a moment while you're reflecting what beauty means to you, but also one thing that stood out to you today. If you would share in the chat with us one thing that you'll be taking away, one thing that meant something to you, and if you're feeling moved, also to tell us your definition of beauty. But we would really love to hear from you something that impacted you and that you'll be taking with you. And thank you again for being here with us. Thank you for spending your morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, but we just honor your time and your presence, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We'll see you on the other side.
Hillary, you're not full screen.
Am I good to go now?
Yeah, good to go.
Life unfolds around me. I can choose which path I take. Will it be darkness again, or a brilliant life I make? We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are standing in the shelter of ancients. We are speaking the truth of the people. We are marching to the beat of one drum, one drum. Hey, 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 sounds you make. We'll speak here in many tongues. Join the circle with your mask down. You will see the plans you make. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are standing in the shelter of ancients. We are speaking the truth of the people. We are marching to the beat of one drum, one drum. Way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, ya. Way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, ya. Time and circumstance bring me down, bring me down. But there's a time for recompense and a time to break new ground, new ground. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are standing in the shelter of ancients. We are speaking the truth, speaking the truth, speaking the truth. We are marching to the beat of one drum, one drum. Way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, ya. Way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, way, hey, ya, hey, ya.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Thank you.
tomorrow.